Hello everyone and welcome to TAUR. TAUR is a newly released game on Steam. It just came out this past week, and essentially it's a tower defense game with a campaign metagame of fighting an invasion on your home planet and building up your defenses over the course of many short bite-sized battles. The game is really interesting. It's got a lot of unique ideas and fun weaponry at your disposal, so I thought it was worth giving it a mention. So let's wind things back to the start of the game and introduce the basics to you. Now, the main premise of TAUR is that you have a central weapon called the Prime Cannon, and this is always going to be player controlled. Now, the Prime Cannon has a primary weapon and a secondary weapon, and it can eventually be upgraded to have 4 of each, but starting off it just has a basic railgun shot and then a mortar. Now, these need to be reloaded separately on different cooldowns, which you can see on the bottom left and right of the screen, and at the bottom center of the screen you can see the Prime Cannon's health, and losing your Prime Cannon means you lose the battle, so ultimately that is what you're protecting. Now, as you progress through the battles, you'll start earning various currencies that you can use then to research new weapons and upgrades, or you could use the currency in battle to deploy surrounding weapons and defenses. So during a battle, you'll enter into build mode where time slows down and you're presented with 60 hex slots around your Prime Cannon. You pay to unlock any one of these slots, and then you pay again to drop one of 9 types of structure on that hex. So these could be things like turrets, anti-air missiles, lasers, aircraft bays, and so on. We'll get to the types in detail later, so the important thing to note here is that each of these structures have their own health, and if they get destroyed, you're still fine. You just always have to protect the Prime Cannon. Furthermore, losing a structure isn't even that big of a deal, as you get refunded its initial cost at the end of the battle, so you never really lose anything that you can't get back instantly for the next fight. You do, however, lose points on your meta campaign, which we'll talk about later. You may have noticed as well the larger slots on the outside of your Prime Cannon. These are for large weapons and shields that you can unlock later on, but they basically operate the same as the small hexes. Now, if you want to change your build, you can dismantle structures and get refunded instantly during the battle, but then you can't rebuild on that same hex until the next fight. So if you're fighting in an air raid and you didn't bring enough air defense, you could dismantle some structures, and if you had fresh slots open, you could then drop some air defense on them. Now, it's rare that you're going to be doing this, but it is sort of a quick solution if you're in trouble during a particular fight. Now, of course, after a tough fight, you might have lost most of your structures and just have to freshly rebuild right away. This would be one of my first concerns with the game. It's that you have a short window of time to drop structures at the beginning of a fight, rather than just design your tower before the mission begins. I'm not really sure what's gained in terms of gameplay doing this. I mean, sure, it feels a little bit more immediate, and you have the pressure of the impending wave, but to me it was just kind of annoying having to go in and out of the menu like 20 times to rebuild my tower, basically how I had it before. I also found myself removing most of my stuff in the last few seconds of a battle so I could then rebuild freshly in the next one. This way you could kind of start with a blank slate and really spec yourself for whatever was coming up next. This became so tedious though that I did just end up going with a balanced build for all situations because rebuilding was just too annoying. So let's duck out to the campaign and see what you're fighting for and how the progression works. The meta campaign generally is quite simple in premise. You start with the planet of TAUR, your homeworld, at 50% control. Now, if control of the planet reaches 0%, you lose the campaign. If it reaches 100%, nothing happens. Each day that passes, you can fight one battle, and you'll typically be presented with 3 options to choose from. Now, depending on what you choose, you can see how much control you're going to get for that victory, and how much control they'll get if you lose the battle, and how much if you were to choose not to do the battle at all. It also lists the type of battle, the resources you're going to earn, and the amount of enemies you're going to face. This is pretty interesting because, as I said, you can only do one of these battles each day, and they're all freshly rerolled next time. So you're going to be faced with deciding what's most important to you. Sometimes you'll want certain resources from a battle that maybe you need for the tech tree, but it might mean that you'll have to leave a different battle to be abandoned, and that could give the enemy a lot more control of the planet. Other times you'll want to take the battle with the most control, maybe you need it, but you might miss out on an easy mission that maybe would have given you time to rethink how you're building. And this is something I sort of kind of skipped over actually and forgot to mention. Taking an easy mission with light resistance is a potential way then to reconfigure your build a bit more safely, seeing as you have time to do it during battle. These are randomly generated, I think, and for the most part, I actually quite like that, but you do get weird combinations of things where sometimes the easiest battle will yield the most resources and control, when you think the game would really want to push you for the harder battles. Now, other times you can even come across a situation where no matter what battle you choose and win, you'll still lose some control no matter what. Some people might not like that, but I thought it was actually kind of cool that even winning battles at times means that you could be losing the war. Obviously, if this happened when you were just about to lose, that would be insane and really frustrating. So I hope that if you're on the brink of defeat, it's going to roll battles that at least allow you to regain control if you win. I never tested it, I never actually got close to losing, so I don't know if that would happen or not. Now, generally speaking, while the control aspect of the planet was quite interesting, a major issue with it for me is that the game is just generally really easy. Out of the 60 battles I played, I only lost 4 of them, and I didn't feel like I was being particularly efficient all the time. While there was a lot of narrow victories, there just weren't that many defeats, and I noticed that the enemies at times, they did seem to push towards your prime cannon, but seemingly not really attack it or do anything, especially the melee troops. The ranged troops definitely were firing on it. Now, I only noticed this once or twice, but I wasn't always paying attention on exactly what they were doing, but it could be a factor in why, when everything was destroyed and seemed like I was about to lose, I didn't. The battles themselves only last about 5 minutes. They're really quick, bite-sized battles, as you're kind of forced to think about the meta campaign rather than any one particular fight. And there is good variety and enemy variety in them. I'd just like to see difficulty options increased. As you progress further into the campaign, the difficulty does increase slightly, but so too does your firepower, so I always felt equipped to win, no matter what, pretty easily. Now, this is where I think the refund system that I mentioned before is a little bit strange. If instead of getting all my resources back when things got destroyed, if I only got let's say 50% of it back, the game would become really challenging, as every structure destroyed would now be a sort of setback. I guess it just feels a little bit forgiving in that sense, where even if you lose and get everything destroyed, you just instantly rebuild it all in the next one, no problem. So it's really just about, can I survive a battle, rather than how much can I survive it by. So let's talk progression. After each fight, win or lose, you earn some forms of currency. There's energy, which is used for everything, and then there's 6 other types of resource. Now, we don't need to go into what everything is, but generally the first 3 are used when building in the battle itself, and also in the tech tree, but the other last 3 are only used in the tech tree. So as you build up these resources, you can then spend them in battle or in between battle to progress to get different stuff. So let's go through everything you can get. For primary weapons, you have the railgun, a laser beam, an anti-air lock-on missile, and a dual plasma cannon, sort of like a machine gun. For secondary weapons, you have the mortar, the shotgun, an anti-air missile you don't need to lock on, and a ground missile that just devastates the area directly. These can all be then upgraded to improve strength, fire rate, reload speed, cooldowns, and ammo capacity. There's then also 6 special abilities: regenerating shields, slowing time, getting an area of effect buff, repairing structures, an area of effect damage mine, and a ranger concentrate fire ability. Then you have 9 different structures that go on the hexes. You got your regular turrets, laser turrets, artillery launchers, missile defense systems. You have a fighter hangar, bomber hangar, and a gunship hangar, and these kind of control the airplanes that you have of those respective classes. You then also have Guardian Command and Ranger Command. Now, the Guardian Command deploys these little troops to defend the outer rim of your structures in melee combat, and the Rangers will do the same, but they'll defend with missiles. And lastly, there's the large structures, which are used to create and recharge your shields, and also for large firepower with a large turret or missile. So that's basically it. There's then also buffs to increase health, damage, and pretty much everything you can think of within the tech tree, and then you can also upgrade it multiple times. You can then also have a forge room where you can basically pay to roll dice to see if you can get improvements on your primary and secondary weapons. This is risky, as you're effectively just burning a resource that you'll never get back in the chance that you'll get better weapon stats, but given enough investment, the rate of potential improvement gets bigger and bigger, meaning you will eventually get a more powerful weapon. It just depends on how many rolls you're going to need to do it. When you combine all of these things, you have a large suite of tools at your disposal, and it can make for a very fun and engaging battle. As different enemy types come into view, you can switch weapons to deal with them, rebuild your structures, and pop different abilities off. As your shields diminish, reigniting them feels extremely satisfying, and then slowing down time to assess the biggest threats is really great too. Dropships will be carrying in large tanks that roll into the battlefield, and if you're quick enough, you can shoot them out of the air. Artillery pieces that will fire on you from afar, while ground soldiers will fight your defenses and try to break through. As you take more and more damage, your own firepower gets diminished as your structures start to go offline. It can be really fun and really intense, but as I said, it is sort of easy. If it was just balanced a little bit differently, I think the game has massive potential to be a really excellent tower defense game. So what's the point of the campaign? Well, on day 50, the Overlord of the Imperion forces appears, and this is a massive boss fight that you're essentially not really meant to survive on your first run with it. Over time, you'll start to unlock more technologies and abilities to help you deal with it. Now, I played only until day 60, and I'm assuming at day 100 the dropship reappears and then you can probably have enough to kill it. Again, I was a bit disappointed as when it did defeat me, I didn't lose any planetary control, so yet again, it is quite easy. There was just zero repercussions from losing that fight. Now you might be thinking, if you haven't played the game, like, oh, I'm sure I could beat it. You obviously weren't very good. You're saying it's easy. You could definitely beat it on day 50. Now there might be a way to beat it. I don't know. But like I said, by the time I got to day 50, I had only lost maybe 4 of the missions out of the 50 missions I did. So I don't think I could have done that much better. You don't get any more resources or tech or anything like that for beating it any better. So, you know, I had a pretty good win rate up to that point. Now lastly, I just want to talk about the visual style and the audio of the game. No doubt throughout the video you've been able to get a good feel of it yourself, and personally I just think it looks really excellent. It really runs smooth, it's got visual clarity, it has a really great particle effects that actually look quite realistic in contrast to the voxel looking enemies and terrain, but it still somehow just kind of works together. Then on top of that, you have really great audio cues to let you know when cooldowns are ready and guns are reloaded, and a nice bassy, tactile weapon noises for the variety of guns at your disposal. One drawback for me is that while the music is actually really good, it never plays during battles itself. This might be to help the player hear their own weapons more clearly, as it, you know, actually is quite a big factor, but I do think it takes away from the atmosphere of battles. Now during the boss battle on day 50, really cool music came on and it made it feel really epic and challenging and intense, so the music is a bit of a missed opportunity I think during the battles themselves. Anyways, that's it for my review of TAUR. I do think it's quite fun, though for me it did just end up being a little bit too easy, which undermines a lot of its cool mechanics. And while the scale is quite large, I do wish it was even bigger, or we had some missions that were twice as long. Mission variety was pretty good, and enemy variety was pretty good, and there's plenty of types of battles to keep you guessing and interested, at least for the first 50 days. But after, day 50 or so, I'm starting to hope for a big increase in challenge that never really arrived, or even just the length of battle. As my prime cannon was getting so heavily upgraded, I felt like I could handle a lot more. Now this game isn't early access, it's done, it's out, but nevertheless the developer is, asking for feedback and ideas to expand and improve the game, so it's after receiving a couple balance patches already, so if this isn't something you think you'll pick up soon, it is one to keep your eye on for future. I'm going to keep playing actually myself, I really want to beat that boss. That's all for me. If you like these videos where I check out different smaller strategy games, then please consider giving the video a like or consider supporting me on Patreon so I can continue to devote time to smaller games that don't necessarily yield as many views. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next one.